Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And we are continuing our discussion of self-esteem, how to build our self-esteem, and how that then busts shame and eliminates shame in our lives.
Which everybody needs to do.
Right?
I said this last time in a few episodes ago that I believe the key to healthy relationships is managing shame. And so this is something that we all need to probably be better at, but we want to be better at anyway because we feel better. And we all have someone that we are teaching or we have influence in their lives, children, grandchildren, you name it. And we want them to feel good about who they are as well.
Yes.
So picking up kind of where we left off, one really good way to increase our sense of self-worth is to manage our anxiety. So any takers on this one?
Yes.
So anxiety being a sense of fear, I'm not safe. And so how do we create a greater sense of safety in our lives, moving away from this fear foundation and more into a love and trust and confidence foundation?
Right.
This whole step right here,
It could be a couple.
we should do an episode on anxiety and managing anxiety.
Right.
But
I mean, obviously, one of those things we've talked about extensively, right, is to be aware of what your needs are and maybe what extra boundaries you need in your life that you may not have, which can sound a little bit counterintuitive when you're saying, okay, move out of that into the space of love, right? Sometimes we confuse love and boundaries, but actually when we have really healthy boundaries, we are much more able to love and we can step into that space much more. So if that's a space where you're like, oh, that's one of the things, how many episodes do we have on boundaries? Like so many, right? So that's definitely part of that, but you're right, we probably should do one on anxiety.
because anxiety, I mean, there's a lot to it. There's bottom up body first approaches of breathing and tapping and muscle relaxation and warm showers or hot baths or cold bowls of water in your face. There's lots of things we can do kind of a body first because some of our fear and feelings originate in our body, sort of outside of our conscious awearness.
Yes.
But there's also our thinking and how our thinking contributes to anxiety. And so bottom up, top down, there's different ways to do this. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail now on that, but
we're going to give you a little taste and just say, hey, be aware of this.
Yeah.
Maybe
but
take it to your therapist. And
yeah, for sure. But at least the idea of I want to better understand and be aware of and manage my anxiety, and it will absolutely directly affect my sense of self-worth, my self-esteem. It will.
Yep, absolutely. And also then affect and lower your shame in your life. So, yes, we'll just kind of put this little tidbit out there and you can run with it and then we'll talk about it in more detail in another
hopefully
episode or two or
that's all these episodes are after all anyway, right? They're not super comprehensive because it would be a whole you write books and volumes on this. So hopefully it just gives you ideas and you go, aha, I want to learn more and I want to study, and you do.
Okay, so then next one, exercise. Yes. Exercise is such a huge part of our well-being.
It really is.
It touches so many different things, right? And moving our bodies, I mean, it just does so many things, right? We're moving emotions through our bodies and through and out. So just doing that can be a process of releasing some of anxiety, shame, lack of worth, all of that stuff just by itself, right? But additionally then, it can really empower us, right?
Yeah.
When you can do things physically that you couldn't do before, that's a very empowering space. And you start to feel better about yourself, about your body and what it's capable of, and probably also how it looks. That even starts to come into play.
I mean, we could talk about gratitude and how appreciating your body is going to make you feel better.
Yes.
Your body functionality. We could tie this back into a sense of accomplishment. And when you are consistent, even if it's walking, you'll feel better.
You will. Yes, I can say that 100% because I am definitely like the person who loves to really, really push my body. And of course, with my broken back right now, like walking is the limit of what I'm allowed to do. And even though it like really irks me sometimes and I get really irritated that like, I can't do more, when I like, get out there and I'm just grumbly about it and just like, this isn't even working out and da-da-da-da-da. I always still feel better after I do it. And I come back and I'm like, I feel so much better. So it does. It really works. Even when you don't think it should, it does.
Yeah. Yep. So exercise, very good, very important.
And again, focusing not on, right, like I'm losing weight or I'm doing,
It's not a scale thing.
Yes. It's so much more like being a stronger, healthier person, right? Because if we start going down that path, it's not going to actually help as much as it could with our self-esteem if we're like, oh, I didn't hit that number on the scale or whatever.
It can be tricky for sure. So the right approach is going to be necessary here.
Yes. Being healthier and stronger. And that just lifts our space. Because, some of those other things like numbers on the scale and some of that, it is so tied to so many other millions of things, right?
And the frustration you'll feel if that's what it's for. Instead of I'm doing this to feel better and it gives me energy throughout the rest of the day. If it's a number on a scale, what happens when for whatever other reason nothing's moving?
When the 8 other things that you don't even know exist come into play.
How does that impact your mood? How does that impact your motivation? Now what?
Yep.
And so
it's
different
going to be more
approach.
helpful with self-esteem if we're focusing on being stronger and healthier and giving you energy through your day.
Yep. So that's a big one. So this next one kind of ties into what we talked about before in the last episode, where you are finding, discovering, creating experiences of feeling loved. And this is increasing your self-understanding, including, I think, especially what your higher power feels about you. And so you think of maybe reading the Bible and going through Psalms and hearing these statements of gratitude or praise or how the Lord's mercy endures forever. And you begin to get a sense of you're in this group of warmth and light from the sun, that you are important and you matter and there are good things waiting for you and your story ends well, which I also like to kind of tie back into anxiety, what we talked about, the sense of you're safe. Well, what ultimately makes you safe? What actually is your foundation?
Yeah.
And so I think your spirituality is an important part of this, and your higher power has a very important role in that.
Yeah. And again, we're separating spirituality from religion, right? Because those are different.
Yeah.
And really connecting to your spirituality and your higher power and your higher power's view of you.
Yeah.
Right? And that can get a little bit tricky, right? Because oftentimes people conflate their religiosity with their spirituality. And so they may have some views of their higher power due to their religiosity or how they have interpreted their religiosity, right? And so I like to have people create what the relationship that they would like with their higher power, and what would you like your higher power to think of you, and kind of go into that space. And they always come back and it's the same every time, and they nail it every time, right? Like, I want to live in a relationship where my higher power like is protect, it takes care of me, it loves me unconditionally, like all of these things. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure you nailed that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So that might be an exercise that you might need to do as a part of this process to identify your spirituality as maybe separate a little bit from your religiosity.
Yes. And kind of leading off of this self-understanding is the concept of being open and willing to make changes in your life that need to happen, that those things, those activities, those situations that are making you feel worse about you or holding you back in some way.
Right.
Because we do a lot of things that it's hard to feel good about ourselves doing or saying those things.
Yeah.
And so it's a recognition of, hey, I may need to make some changes here. I mean, we're talking about lifestyle change anyway. This isn't like we do a few things for a few minutes.
Right. Check a couple of boxes and then
and we're
good
good.
to go.
Probably not. This is a lifestyle change, and we have to be open to what gets in the way directly of me feeling bad about myself. For example, in the work we do, sexual addiction recovery, let's say, if you're coming in and you're looking at porn, you're acting out, after you do this, you feel terrible about yourself. And not that, that reason alone is why you would get sober and that's all you need, but that's an activity that significantly decreases your sense of self-worth. Right. What other activities? Maybe it's wasting time. Maybe you have downtime, and so you hop on your phone, and a few hours later, you're like, I do not feel good.
Whoa, what did I just do with all that? Yes.
And so just being open to activities and habits or patterns that actually make you feel worse because they're out there. And if we pay attention, we'll learn, this is the self-understanding. What are those things in my life that just make me feel not very good about me?
Yes.
And how can I replace those with things that actually make me feel better, like what we're talking about?
Yes, I love that. And it's so applicable to every single person, no matter what they're going through, no matter where they're at, is just being aware of like, ooh, I don't feel great when I do X, Y, or Z. So what can I do to shift and change that?
Right.
And in my experience, a lot of times those things are not like an easy swap, right? Like I'm changing, so I'm not looking at porn and masturbating or whatever, right? That's not an automatic, like that's not just like, oh, we just flip the switch and we just stop doing X, Y, or Z, right? Like it's a process of change and a process, if you escape by eating chocolate or you stay up all night doing whatever on Netflix and whatever, and you don't feel that great and you're wanting to shift that, it's likely going to be a process of change and recognizing that and going, okay, how can I, like, what maybe boundaries or different things do I need to put in place for myself so that I can shift and change that behavior?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know for myself personally, I can get lost on social media very quickly. And so I don't have it on my phone. Right? Like, they have to go through a very circuitous route to get to it, right? And so then that gives me time to sit and think and maybe set a timer so I'm not on it as much, or, different things like that, right? So don't be too hard on yourself if you're like, okay, I need to change this and that, and it's not a super fast automatic thing.
Right. Remember, co-approach in everything in your life, I hope.
Yes. Curious, open, accepting, loving. Next point would be to forgive yourself. Whew.
Oh, boy.
This one could be its own episode as well, at least, right?
Yeah. But it's very closely tied to some of these other ones we talked about. So if we're talking about affirmations like I love and accept myself completely, that is a form of forgiveness. And if we talk about making peace with our failures and our past, this is also just a synonym
being
for
accepting
forgiveness.
And loving. Yes. And part of that again is also separating ourselves from our behavior, right? All of these things, being okay with mistakes, celebrating mistakes as a movement towards being our best self. So again, while this could probably be its own episode and we're just touching lightly on it, it's important to notice how all these pieces are fitting together in this building of our esteem.
There's a few things that I think are really important as well to remind yourself of. And so this is kind of how I conceptualize this. Remind yourself that you no longer need to focus on only pleasing other people.
Right.
This idea isn't that pleasing other people is bad, but
No.
we tend to focus too much or prioritize others
Right.
over us.
Right. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Some people have that tendency.
Right.
Right? A lot of people have the tendency on one side or maybe on the other, right? But
So you're allowed to also focus on you.
yes, which is huge.
It is huge. Also, remind yourself that no matter what people do or say, and regardless of what happens outside of you, you alone control how you feel about yourself. This is what we're always trying to teach our children, right?
Right.
You know, Johnny said this, and they think that I'm whatever. And
Yes.
it's like, it doesn't matter what they think.
Yes.
We say this all the time, and then we're not doing the
doing
same
it
thing.
ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
We're looking at the neighbors, and we're comparing, and we're...
Yeah.
So...
Doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter what other people say or do, or even what you do, you're controlling how you feel about you.
Right.
And you can feel good about yourself and have that value regardless of what the Joneses are doing.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or saying.
I mean, it didn't even make this list, but easily on this list could be stop comparing.
Right.
And maybe that should be on the list.
Maybe we should put that on the list.
I'm going to add it to the list.
Okay. Right now, in the middle of our recording,
now.
he is adding it to our list. It's so, so true. How much of our lives do we waste and how much time do we spend doing that instead of living this amazing, beautiful life that we each have? It's really, really powerful. So you also have the power, again, reminding yourself, you have the power to respond to events, circumstances based on what's going on inside of you, your internal source, resources, and resourcefulness. And that's a reflection of your true value.
Yeah.
Right? So you have that grounded, centered space inside of yourself that you can go to and respond, right? Rather than react. And it really is powerful when you see this play out. When you see someone who has been in an abusive situation, right? With maybe an abusive person in their life. And they can get to the place where they are responding rather than reacting and, setting those healthy boundaries or whatever. And it's like, you're welcome to do whatever you would like. However you choose I'm going to choose this. And you can stay in that calm, grounded, and respectful space no matter what's getting thrown at you. That is power. And that, boy, can that just really elevate your esteem of yourself.
Yeah. To think that you have everything you need inside of you is very empowering.
Yes. Okay, and then the last one we're going to talk about today is taking responsibility. This is so huge, I feel like, in the world we live in today.
It is.
It's very much a push off responsibility and accountability on everyone else, but I still get all the rights and whatever, So taking responsibility, full responsibility, but not others' responsibility. There's such a balance there, right? But taking full responsibility for everything that happens to you without giving your personal power and your agency away. So this includes responsibility for your feelings and your emotions and shifting from a place of doing what doesn't work into doing what works, right?
Right.
In this healthy living space.
Right.
So
it can be scary.
Yes.
Right. At first, especially because if I'm letting go of my life is not what I want because of something outside of me, but actually it's maybe something inside of me that's very scary. And you have to have a very firm, I'm more than what I do. My worth is separate. I have, unfortunately, some less effective habits and patterns in my life.
Right.
And it's okay that I look at them because it does not impact my worth or value. And so
Yes.
maybe I've been running my whole life from things that are scary about me because I think it makes me a bad person. It makes me unlovable. It makes me worthless. What if it didn't? And how do we make that change?
What if it didn't?
So taking responsibility for your life. So this is the idea, right, of moving from a victim,
Yes.
which we all are at some point in some way,
Right.
to a survivor, which is healthy. We're coming out of being a victim. But ultimately, we don't stop there.
Yes.
We move to creator. And are you creating the life that you want? And do you believe that you can?
Right. Right. So even if there are things that happen to you that are out of your control, what then, what are you doing? What are you choosing in this moment to create the life that you want, right? So what about like the ultimate thing, right? Like an act of God, right? Tornado comes through, destroys your house, right?
Yeah.
Like you did not cause that, right? But what are you going to choose in this space? How are you going to take full responsibility? Are you just going to sit down and go, well, my life is over and I might as well just sit and die here, right? Or are you going to say, okay, what can I choose? How can I take full responsibility for the circumstance that I am in now and how I am moving forward in this space? And that is like the ultimate power that we can have and the ultimate esteem that we have, right? When we take full responsibility and move through that and create the life we love and want. Oh, it's amazing. That's just powerful.
Viktor Frankl, the last great human freedom is to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. And that's exactly what Sherry's talking about. So
very, very powerful. And those are the people that we all look up to, right? Yeah. Those are the stories that we repeat, and the ones that we want to hear are those circumstances, whether there was partial contribution, there were things that I did in that circumstance that led to this devastating outcome or not. Those are the stories that are empowering and that demonstrate the worth and the value and the esteem, right? Are those spaces. That's what we want to hear. And so be that in your own life, right? Create that in your own life. Create the world that you want to live in, the life that you want.
And that's why you're always going to be safe.
Yes.
No matter what happens.
Because you are the creator.
Exactly.
I love that. And then think about how, you can just, even saying that, I can feel in my own body, right? Like the esteem, the value, the expansion, the power of that. And if you're living in that space, where's the shame? There's just no, you're just embracing this amazing space.
Exactly.
Okay, it's a great spot to end. I mean, we could still talk about this for a while, I think, but for today, this is where we'll end.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope it was helpful.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.